Howdy howdy one and all, Kent Wade here, back again, ready to show you some more Cypher setups. Today we are going to be checking out the map Split. We have a couple of different setups and positions here for both A and B site, and we are going to go ahead and show you those today. These are going to be very wonderful setups that will be able to get you in a very wonderful position, be able to give you a bunch of presence on the sites, as well as make sure that you are coordinating with your team so that they can help you out if you're in a pinch. So without any more time wasted, let's go ahead and check out our first setup on this map. We're going to start out our setups today here on A site. For our first setup, we're going to want to go ahead and make sure we are in this little corner right here to set up our camera right there. It's a bit of a peculiar and finicky spot. You're going to want to make sure that you line it up exactly with that little corner that you see right there. It'll take you probably a good fair amount of times to get it just right and even to get it consistently. So don't be afraid. We have a couple of other camera positions here on this same setup if you would like to go ahead and maybe do something a little bit more quickly. But this one is a very good aggressive camera. You also have to make sure that your camera is able to see all the way over here. Sometimes when you mess it up, it is very common for it to stop like right here. So if you can't move your camera all the way over here, it is not the correct camera position. This one is very wonderful. You can basically see inside their spawn. You can get a snapshot of them there, even under. You can catch them walking down, hear them, do all the wonderful stuff like that. You're going to have one tripwire set up right here. You can do this also before the round. Throw that right around there. Second tripwire, you're going to want to make sure that no one comes up ramps and starts to push you in tower. You're going to want to throw one here, just like that. That way they don't hop over it. That way they aren't able to crouch under it. That way they'll have to shoot it and you'll get the info. That way you can prepare accordingly with your team as to whoever is pushing up ramp. This setup is going to be, in fact, a one-way, so we are going to go ahead and set up our cage right there. To go ahead and do that, you're going to want to make sure that you see this edge of the corner of the wall right here. You're going to want to go ahead and line yourself up with that corner of the wall. It is a bit hard to do on low settings, so if you want to make it a little bit easier at first, make sure you have your settings on high, or you can go ahead and just check this corner right there. Push yourself into it as much as you can. You're going to want to make sure that your crosshair is lined up with that bottom dark edge of that bluish grayish part of the building right there. Then you're going to want to go ahead and chuck it out right there. Get it in that little tiny corner right there. Ignore all those guys. They didn't make the cut. They weren't cheesy enough. You're going to want to go ahead and make sure that it is positioned right about there. Second cage, you're just going to go ahead and put a simple one right about there. Once you have set up all of your traps, cages, and cameras for this setup, you're going to want to go ahead and position yourself somewhere around tower. You will have this cage if you need to go ahead and move out towards your spawn. But from here, you just go ahead and keep an eye on their spawn, see what's happening there. Again, you might be able to get a very cheeky shot off right there from a tag, or you could wait till it's a little bit safer here. However, if you wait till then, they might very well see it and might be able to take it out before you get a chance to tag them. This camera is a very wonderful camera setup if you are an aggressive peeker. If you want to go ahead and maybe throw a tag there, pop your one way, and then start to fire. Or conversely, if you are over here towards ramp, if you want to be a little bit more of an aggressive peeker, maybe using less of your util, you can wait for the tag, go for the tag right there, peek that one. Granted, you will not have any cover from your cages, but it is if you are feeling a bit aim dually. So just make sure you're constantly checking your camera from there. Set the one way off. Make sure that you are positioning yourself in a good enough position so that you can shoot them without them shooting you. From there, if you start to hear them come up ramp, you're just going to want to make sure that you pop these cages right here. You can use those to go ahead and head out towards CT, or you can use those to go ahead and try to get some wall bangs, see if they shoot your trap, see if they get caught by your trap. But this one is very good overall if you want to start to play aggressive, or just play it by ear and move when the enemy moves. If you're having a bit of trouble getting this camera right here because it is a bit finicky, you can have a situation like this where you cannot go further over to the right, and that is no bueno indeed. So if you're having a bit trouble with that, or just want a different camera setup because they know that setup and are shooting it down over and over again, this is also another very wonderful one. It is nothing too hard to shoot. You just have to make sure that you get it just close enough right there, and then from there it is a very good setup. You can see all the way through the backside of A main, and it gives you a good chance to see where the enemy's coming, if they're going up ramp or if they're pushing down A, and it also allows you to trigger your one way, and if they decide to peek over here, you'll know where they're going. Second setup time. Here we go. This one is going to be more geared towards tower and a little bit of mid-vent. So for here, we're going to want to make sure that we get our camera positioned right there. You're also going to want to make sure you don't get it too high. It is crucial that we keep it at just the perfect position right here, and I'll show you why in just a second. From the camera, you're going to want to make sure you have about the same tripwire as we had on the other setup right over yonder. Making sure you stare it directly into the eyeball. That way you know the enemy is going to be doing the exact same to your bullet. From there, another one of the one-way lineups. Position yourself in this corner right here. You're going to want to make sure your crosshair is right about here. From here, you're going to want to throw your cage out like so. And from that, you are going to set yourself up for a very, very wonderful one-way. If you tend to get it once, but aren't too sure about the second time, you're going to want to make sure that it lines up with the K right here. As you can see, it has a bit of a point. So you're just going to want to make sure that you line up your crosshair a little bit above that point and chuck it right over there. Our last tripwire is going to be going more towards mid-vent, as I said. If you just want to go ahead and put a default one right here is just as good as any. However, if you would like to wait and maybe see if they push you a little bit closer, you can go ahead and throw one in vent right here. You could potentially do a bit of a cheeky one and catch them off guard by getting one of the angles, or you could just go for a very standard type of one there. Maybe even one a little bit closer to ropes, that way they aren't too aware of it. Maybe even a little bit higher towards ropes, maybe somewhere like right there. Either way, that is some tripwire that you can play around with a bit and play to the weaknesses of your enemies. And now that you have all your mouse traps set, you are going to want to go ahead and make sure you position yourself just right about here, making sure you are on the box, but also making sure you are not able to be seen from ramp side. You're going to want to go ahead here and start to use your camera right there. Now, why is this camera so good, you may ask? Well. This camera is almost virtually indestructible for a time and is able to tag your opponents as many times as you are able to shoot them. And I will go ahead and demonstrate to you how that is possible. So you have an enemy pushing up here. Pretend the enemy is me. Maybe it's a Jet. Maybe it's a Raze. Who knows? Maybe it's a Cypher as well. But you're going to want to go ahead and picture that there's an enemy pushing up here. You are going to be sitting in that corner right there. And then from there, let's say you're taking a look on your camera. By the time the enemy is right here, the camera is right there. I'm not able to see it. I might be able to wall bang it, but that is also assuming I know that it is directly right there. The camera could be here. Camera could be there. Camera could be in a bunch of places. But from there, you can very, very faintly see their toes. And that might not be enough to tag them, but that will be more than enough for you to call out to your team and let them know where their enemies are pushing. And from there, let's say they decide to push even further. They still have no shot as to where the camera is. They might have a bit of an idea, but they do not have a 100% fact, and they are not able to see it. And seeing is believing. So if they are not able to see it, they are shooting randomly in the dark. You are able to tag them. You're able to know where they're coming from. And let's say you're sitting over here as the Cypher on defense. If you go ahead and tag them, or you just start to see them push up faster and faster, or maybe they do end up shooting out your camera. What you're going to want to go ahead and do then, throw your one way, get that all nice and hunky-dory and good to go. This one is very, very wonderful. If they decide to be all the way towards the back of ramps, though, I do believe that they will be able to see you if you decide to peek from here. Or if you decide to peek over here, maybe do a bit of moving. Maybe you decide to move over here. Maybe one of your teammates is trying to help you out and come from mid-vent to tower. If that is the case, this one way might put them in jeopardy. As I said, if the enemy stands all the way back there, they will be able to see people's toesies and feet walking across, walking to sight. So if you have an extra cage, you're going to want to go ahead and just put a very simple, common one right there. That way it gives your teammate time to cross, gives you time to maybe do some more shooting, gives you guys time to regroup and re-coordinate. This, in my opinion, is my favorite setup for Cypher here on A, not only for the information it gives you, but also the sheer amount of presence it gives you here in tower. If you are Cypher and you have a teammate even playing in mid-vent, you can pretty much leave this to its own devices if you want. As I said, sitting right there is the most opportune situation. But let's say you just want to maybe stay a little bit more on site. That way you cover all your bases. Maybe you want to solo hold A like an absolute mad lad going on a run for cheese. This is one of the best setups for that. You can go ahead and make sure that the enemy is not pushing you up heaven. And then from there, you also have sight, which gives you a good chance to do some aim duels if you are feeling a bit aim duely as it always. But overall, I would say that this one is very, very wonderful, and you should definitely be using this one in your next game on Split. Now, as we mosey our way down towards the B site here on Split, we're going to want to go ahead and have our first setup here be in B Tower for our camera. We're going to want to go ahead and stand on this box and make sure we set it up right there. Like so. We're going to want to set up our camera right there. That way we have a good passive view of B Tower. Enemies might be able to see this, enemies might not. For the most part, it'll just be depending on how much you use it and how much they hear it and if they get tagged by it, of course. But this is a very, very wonderful passive one that you can use to set up later in the round if they maybe don't see it and you maybe don't use it and you wait to retake. This would be a very, very good one to make sure you can completely clear out your heaven and potentially mail. From the camera, we want to have one tripwire set up like so, making sure we have it covering their top and bottom. Second tripwire we're going to want to set here a little bit lower or potentially a little bit higher, just to make sure that when people are spraying over here that they don't get it all in one line. It'll make it a little bit harder, and it'll also potentially get them tagged by both tripwires. After the tripwires, we're going to want to go ahead and set up one cage right here in the corner, and then we're going to go ahead and set up another one right over here so that we get both of those. Position ourselves over yonder. Make sure we get a good view of them here. Start to hear them, we throw up a cage. It's another one of the peeksies. Give them a bit of a hair trim again. We could throw up that cage as well if they start to move more towards the inside of B Tower. And we peek over both of them. And we get some wonderful, wonderful views of their heads. When you decide to play on site for B, this is going to be the setup you are going to want to go ahead and use right here. Camera is going to be a pretty basic positional setup right there. You're going to want to make sure that it is in that little corner. Stand on this box here. Go like so. This will make sure that they have to stand at least all the way over here just to make sure that they're able to even shoot the camera out. From there, you have your one tripwire like so. You have your second tripwire like so, making sure that it is getting towards sight. That way, if anyone tries to plant or if someone tries to dash in, it will be a very, very easy way to get them trapped and make them hesitate. You're going to want to go ahead and just chuck your cage up right there. Get yourself the one way. Very, very wonderful, helpful one way. Those guys didn't make the cut again. After that cage, just throw a very simple one right here next to this tripwire, making sure it makes it a little bit harder for them to see it. And then you're going to want to go ahead and position yourself in the back sight of B, right around here. Keep an eye on your camera. Make sure you see if any toesies are poking through. Maybe see if they're having a little T set time in B main. From there, throw up the cage, throw up the one way. Watch their toes, watch their feet. Check to see if they go over the tripwires. Keep it up, keep it going. If you need to go ahead and head out, you can maybe try to do that here. You will be a bit exposed, so just make sure you do it in the middle of your one way if you are able to get out. Or if you aren't able to get out, you can go ahead and just as easily throw up this cage. Granted, you won't have a cage there once they try to push in. But if you desperately need to get out, if you are being pushed, this is a very good cage for that. Makes you completely hidden from the enemy and gives you just enough time to regroup with your team. Now, in a bit of opposition from our setup in B Tower, this one is going to be a bit more on the aggressive side just because of the placement of your body as well as the placement of your traps, your one-ways, and your camera. They will be able to be seen very quickly depending on the rush of the enemy team. So you have to make sure you stay on your toes, that you're coordinating with your team, and that you guys are able to make sure that you are not giving each other up to potential bad angles. Really quickly, if you are not going up against a Raze or someone who dashes in very quickly, or a Sova drone that might end up getting a bit too low to the ground, if you are not facing any of that, an alternate tripwire setup, if you want to go ahead and maybe catch them a bit off guard, is right here, connecting to this can of Mr. Pibb. It is a bit of a finicky one. You're going to just want to make sure that you get it just like that, so that it sets up like that. Very, very cheeky one. A bit of a secret maneuver right there. Your enemies will not know what hit them. And that is going to be all for our Cypher setups here today on Split. I want to thank you all so very, very much for checking out the video. It means all the world to me. If you are still here, that is more support than I could have ever asked for. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you would like to support a little bit more, maybe throw a like there. Maybe go ahead and tell your friends, tell your family, tell your grandma, tell your pet cheese. Or leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite setup was on Split. Let me know if you think that there is a better setup on either site. and let me know what other agents you would like me to do setups for in the future, and I will hopefully see you guys very, very soon.